I'm wondering what your view of optimism is.
Oh, absolutely. You remember when Amy asked about the 4 key characteristics of happy and unhappy people?
Right.
So the first one I said, I just used a different term for it. I said,
outlook.
Positive outlook towards life. Absolutely, you have to be optimistic. I have not seen a pessimistic guy who's really happy, so that it's in no way, it's not possible, because my definition of happiness, it's a sense of well-being that almost always accompanied by satisfaction and hope. Without hope, if you're going to think that what's going to come is actually worse than what you have right now, surely your entire physiology is going to go into defenses, just trying to deal with that situation. And those defenses, this physical reaction, is nothing more than being depressed or being angry or upset or having a headache or anything of that sort. So absolutely, and you're right. There are probably some studies that link optimism to certain chemicals in the brain, but I truly believe, in my case, because I was not optimistic. In my case, if I go into an uncertain situation, and because I'm a perfectionist, I would anticipate all the potential scenarios of things going on. And then I would get into the situation and I'm really stressed. And most of my fears were all in my head. So for me, I know that optimism is a learned behavior. I know it from my first-hand experience. Knowing this and practicing this, whenever I see myself going into a direction of negativity, I automatically break that pattern, because people behave in pattern, and I would think positively instead. I would force myself to think positively, look at all the potential scenarios that would go right. And then I feel the changes in the way I sit, the tension in my muscles, and after a while, I was surprised. My first instinct was almost always was a positive thing. And you know what's even wonderful, Bob?
What?
The principle of self-fulfilling prophecy. You see, I'm an engineer by training too, so I like physics. So there's a law of the moment of inertia. See, once you get set into a certain cycle, there's 2 cycles. There's a vicious cycle of negativity, and there is a virtuous cycle of positivity. Once you get into that cycle, it would be very difficult to reverse it. Not only that, not only you would be a better person in terms of your own feeling, the people around you start to respond better to you. And that's the principle of self-fulfilling prophecies. I have succeeded far more in my performance, whether it's my career performance, whether it's my relationships. I'm not talking from a metaphysical perspective. I'm talking from a purely psychological perspective. If I was always afraid of something, most of the time, my fears will be realized. And if I was hopeful of something, my hopes would become this. So rather than talking in general terms, let me give you an example. Let me illustrate it with an example. So let's say I go into a new situation where I'm going to meet a person. And for whatever reason, I look at this person, and I have this bad feeling towards him or her. If you look at the situation from a pure objective and scientific perspective, I have no reason whatsoever to think that this person is good or bad, because I did not have an interaction with her or him. I realize because we are influenced, our programming, by whatever we have seen and done in our life. So maybe that whatever he's triggering in my brain that makes me feel bad towards him or afraid of him or her is a hairstyle that I saw on a villain, probably in a movie. Or he looks like somebody I know that I had a bad experience from, or his accent. So whatever it is, I would realize that my reaction to him is probably due to a past experience or fear of the unknown, rather than it is based on a fact. So what happens is, here's how self-fulfilling prophecies works. Because I go in defensive with this person, people are not stupid. People will sense if you are warm or open or defensive, and they will respond in kind. So if you go and you feel defensive of this person, you're not going to share as much information with him. You're not going to collaborate with him. And or her, she's going to feel that you're hiding something, and that would establish a mistrust. That launches us or triggers us into a cycle of an unhealthy relationship. So at one point, he's going to say or do something that I'm going to interpret as negative and say, oh my God, I knew that this guy is bad. And I knew this is going to happen. And I realized at the end of the day that it's me who actually triggered him or her to react to me that way. On the other hand, after I became optimistic, I realized that I always put my stereotypes or prejudice or previous programming aside and go on and say, okay, every person has goodness and badness in them.